Hello, my name is Star, and so I'm gonna start off with the fact that I didn't know that when this whole one, I didn't know that the moon landing was like a direct, um, what's the word? It was like a direct challenge from the U.S. and specifically from John F. Kennedy, which I had to Google because I didn't know that the there was like a race for who got like a man on the moon first. I just thought it was like always a US thing, which um is a thing in itself because it's like the US is kind of like infamous for, doing things and either not giving credit to certain people or, other countries. And two, we're just kind of like this powerhouse of a country that I guess like kind of forced its way. Well, no, I didn't. I I don't guess. It did. It did force its way into a lot of things. Going back all the way like 1700 specifically when you think about that time and what was happening around that time. So yeah, that in itself is like, not everything like stems from the US wanting to do it first. The US is just like the country I happen to live in, and everything that I was taught or like learn about, I feel like usually tends to be directly like surrounding the US, because the US wants the people living in the country to think that we're like the best country, right? um but regardless, so I had to Google it because I didn't know that it was like a race. I know people have said that, but I don't really like think about it. And I didn't really realize like what time it was um going on, and that there was like the Cold War, um with the Soviet Union and the US. So that was interesting to find out because yeah, like I said, I wasn't aware of that. I'm not great with history, so basically you could tell me anything and I wouldn't know because I don't really pay attention to history. And then I liked how you mentioned like it wasn't just a breakthrough for, like landing someone on the moon. It was a breakthrough for science itself, which I think honestly is so much more impactful to me. Like someone landing on the moon is great, but the science behind it, I think you could make an entirely different movie, um, just focused on like the science of how we got someone to the moon and like the struggles and the obstacles we had to overcome and all that stuff. Because yeah, I feel like there's not enough things recognizing like science breakthroughs, or like when scientists are researching certain things, I feel like you have to search for them. They're not just like on your radar of like, oh, what's new in the world, unless you're searching for those things, unless you're like a science buff and you like that. So yeah, I really thank you for mentioning that, because it reminded me that it wasn't just about the moon landing, it was like science. And then also you mentioned how like, so the dish obviously has like, more bright like colors, and that the overall feel is like not supposed to be ominous, right? Whereas the counterfeiters definitely has a more ominous feel to it. And it makes sense considering, it's like surrounding events going on like during the Holocaust. Whereas the dish, yes, there are things, happening like a war, or many wars actually, and a lot of other things, but this like idea of bright versus dark, or like the light versus the dark, it's it makes me like think like what is considered more powerful, like what makes people think and what impacts people more, when it comes to like, let's just say movies, for example. Specifically, like the cold, or not the Cold War, the dish and the counterfeiters. It's interesting how like a lot of happy things will connect people together, right? And we want to relate to like feelings of like laughter and being like in a familial environment or something like that, right? But when it comes to like the darker side of things, it's interesting to me how like humans just kind of tend to gravitate towards it like in a different way. Like it's not as if like we like want to feel, these disturbing thoughts, but it's like we almost need them. Like we need to experience everything. So, that includes the bad as well as the good. And I just feel like that's like I think a thought that everyone should, like always just kind of think about, because it like intrigues me, I guess, how humans are very prone to, like doing something that seems silly because like our like conscious needs to know like the unknown, right? And so yeah, that just made me think of like humans in general and how we like seeing sometimes like the darkness versus the light. But yeah, I think that was it. Oh, also one more thing. I don't know if you watch this like personally, but whoever, I know the teacher probably watches this, but so my girlfriend and the other person that I watched for this module, they both really liked the Burmese harp, and that's what kind of made me also think about like this whole like more powerful thing, right? Because the Burmese harp, I personally didn't love it. I mean, it was a great movie, but it's not like it wasn't my favorite so far. And it had a very like, kind of sad, like very melancholy feel, right? Like a very melancholy like tone. And it just like, it's interesting how people, tend to have like a have more of a connection towards something that is, set up in that way, like the movie Burmese Heart versus like the dish, right, where it's like, oh my god, like so amazing, blah blah. So yeah, I don't know, that's just something to think about. I think movies usually tend to make me think about that stuff more than anything else, like more just humanity and like the mindset and stuff like that. So yeah.